They put thousands of people and thousands of people down this mine for tours, and with very, very low safety concerns. But at any time you're dealing with heavy machinery and 1,000-foot level, up to 500 feet level in a mine, there could be accidents, and this was a tragic accident. So once again, we don't know how it occurred yet. When I have those details, we'll release them. But I will tell you that we did lose a person in our local community who will be missed, who is a father of a child and has family in the area. So that's all I can give you on this information. But I'll happily take any questions you have after the commissioner says a few words.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And I just want to thank members of the press for being here. You know, we've read your releases. We watched what you've reported. Thank you for being fair and balanced. Thank you for having compassion. Thank you for getting our story out. You know, Teller County has about 30,000 people and a little less. The community this gentleman came from has less than 400 people in it. The neighboring town of Cripple Creek has about 1,200 people in it. Just let that sink in for a minute. This is a county tragedy. This is a Colorado tragedy. You know, Jared Polis talked to both Jason and I several times yesterday. He does intend on calling the victim's family when that's appropriate, so that's we really appreciate that. We've had calls nationally from the White House. I'll just tell you that. So this is it's a big deal, but it's really a big deal for our county. You know, somebody once wrote, and I'm not preaching, I'm just telling you, there's a time for everything under the sun. You've heard that. This is a time for mourning right now. And so you're hearing now what our community is hearing, thanks to you guys getting the word out. And I just wanted to reiterate, you know, your sense of grace for our community as we go through this tragedy. You'll get more details as they're available, to include memorial services, that kind of thing, as it comes into play. We do have our public health director here behind you. She's set up, along with Jason Mikesel, a network of mental health. Again, with 400 people, this is going to affect everybody. People he went to school with, people he ate with, people he played ball with, all that, plus his children, his child, as you know. Secondly, we do have the mayors of Cripple Creek and Victor behind you, so you're able to talk to them if they so choose afterwards, and I'm sure they'll be open and honest. And again, I'm sure they'll ask you for some compassion and privacy as well. So with that, I'll just sit with Jason, and we'll take any questions that you might have.
Yes, sir.
Does this still appear to be a mechanical issue, or are you looking at possibly like a medical issue?
We believe it's a mechanical issue.
Could you confirm the spelling of Patrick's name and where he was from?
So it's Patrick, and his last name is spelled W-E-I-E-R, and he's from our local community.
So he's well known to by everybody.
Yeah. Seems to be, yes.
Was he an employee at the mine?
Yes, so he was an employee of the mine. He's one of the tour guides.
Do you know for how long?
You know, I don't know for how long. Yes, ma'am?
Tell us exactly, you know, what went wrong with the elevator. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened? Like, did it drop, fall? What did that look like?
You know, here's what I know. We know that at 500 feet is where the issue occurred. We know that there was some type of an incident with the doors, and at that point, something went wrong. We don't know what caused that. We don't know how it happened. All we know is that something occurred at that 500-foot level. There's a lot of issues when you can't see it, right? There's not a camera there to identify exactly what occurred. You're in a shaft. So if you've ever seen these elevators, they're not very big. So about 4 to 6 people is about all you can get in it, depending on size. So it's pretty tight. Really, we don't know at the 500-foot level whether it dropped or didn't drop. Some of the reports we had in the initial that it dropped, it may have bound. But really, we don't know. So until that investigation's done, and we expect, if you've ever dealt with OSHA and mine safety, they do a very good job of identifying and really picking apart what could have occurred. But it takes them a while because there's a lot of information they're dealing with, trying to put things together so that they never have another mine accident. So I can tell you we're in touch with the state of Colorado's organizations that deal with those things, elevator, conveyance. They were there last night. I'm sure they're going to be back today trying to do the investigation pieces. My detectives are working with the families to get any information from them as to what occurred at that level. So that's really where we're at. There's a lot of work being done by great people, and really to make sure it never happens again. But I'll tell you, again, this family that runs that mining operation or that tourist operation, they're good people. They've been doing it for, I believe, 60 years. And this was just a very tragic event that occurred.
And you talked about safety within the mine. When was the last time that there was an inspection done at this mining location?
Yeah. So the state of Colorado does the mining inspection. I know that they have done inspections in this site. One of the safety people that came last night had actually been there before. I know it has passed its safety inspections. But to give you an absolute date, I don't have that information.
If you recall, for those of you who were there last night, the DRMS director, which is Department of Reclamation and Mining Safety, was on scene, along with Dan Gibbs, who's the DNR director, his boss. So those two people are the ones you'd have to ask. Because there's an active investigation that may or may not be releasable until the investigation, but those responsible individuals were on scene with us.
When you talk about the people who have reached out, not only just the state of Colorado, but across the nation, I think I know the answer to this question, but why are people so focused on what's happening in Tyler County right now?
I think there's a couple reasons, right? I think right now, because of all the national media attention on the elections, I think there's folks that want to see different types of stories. So really it's a mining incident. Usually in mining incidents, they last for a long time. They're very specific to the nature. It's a life-threatening incident. And I also think there's a lot of people who just want to reach out to help. Here's the other side of it, too. I think with all of the interactions between both sides of the aisle in the political environment right now, this is one where everybody came together. It didn't matter which side of the aisle you sat on. We've had Democratic senators reach out. We had Republican senators reach out. We had the Washington or the White House reach out to talk to us about mental health concerns if we needed anything. We had the governor reach out to us. Doesn't matter who anyone is or their political affiliations or anything else. This really kind of gelled folks as to we have people that are in danger and how do we help. And I'm very happy about that. That's something as a sheriff we deal with all the rhetoric so often, but from what I saw in this event. People really came together, and it didn't matter who it was, and we were receiving phone calls upon the hour, really, to ask, what else do you need? So.
Yeah, I'd add to that. It's no secret to the press that we live in a divided country right now. Divided. I won't say our county's divided. Jason and I work that really hard. We talk about it a lot, and unfortunately, between fires, snowstorms that are 5 feet high, and this, you do get to see the best of humanity. But so a Democratic governor. We live in Congressional District 7. Brittany Pedersen, Congresswoman Pedersen, called us directly and we talked to her. A Democratic White House. None of that matters. And I'll tell you what's really, we talk about this all the time. Jason's one of my best friends. We didn't know the political affiliation of people in that shaft or their orientation or their gender. None of that mattered. What we cared about is, and Jason was great as his leadership, is are they fed? Are they watered? Are they warm? Are there kids down there? And I think there's a lesson here. So to answer your question from my perspective as a county commissioner, it's what right looks like. It's what community looks like, taking care of each other, doing the right thing, and with the investments in first response, with the equipment, with all of that, doing what matters. And I can tell you honestly, there was no political anything on this, and I think that's what the nation wants. Because I'll be honest with you, 30 years in the military, lots of media training. We were talking about last night. We have never seen this kind of viral activity go this quick. And so I think Jason's spot on. It's a thirst for what right looks like. And so I hope that answers it, sir.
Do you have any updates on the other victims that got injuries in the mine?
We know that they were minor injuries. We have not spoke with those ourselves. I know our mental health folks reached out to them right away to keep in contact with them. From that aspect, though, I don't know any more information about those folks, other than they were safe, that we were able to get them the help they needed, and then where they went from there, that's wherever they go.
This is redundant, just jumping off what you said, but basically you're no longer in contact with those people because once they're out,
we're in contact per se to make sure if they need anything else, that we're there for them, and our mental health providers are doing that. Yeah.
I know it's still very early on, but are there any plans for anything like a vigil, memorial, that sort of thing?
We haven't heard anything yet. We'll work with the family to get you that information, and I know that our mayors are closer to the families than what we probably are, and the children. The issue for us is once they give us that information, we'll put it out, and we'll just see what the family wants. We want to respect their what they want, and I think that's a big positive for them to know that we're going to make sure that they get what they need.
Do you know, is there like a stopping point at that 500-foot level? Isn't there other mine shafts at that level?
There are other mine shafts all the way down, from what I know. I don't know that that was a stopping location. I think it was, I'm very certain it was on its descent when this occurred, and then it was brought back up from there. So
Yeah, if you go back to Cripple Creek, if you have time, and go to the Heritage Center where we did all of our press interviews, it's open to the public, open to you certainly. There's a diorama in there toward the back that's really useful if you haven't seen it, and it shows you the depth of these kind of shafts and all those complexities. So it's, that entire area is the historic mining district, and so it's just riddled with that. And of course you have active mining, within about a quarter mile away. So
You mentioned that the gentleman who's from our community, about 400 people in it. Can you say where exactly that is?
yeah, the mayors are both here, and so what we want to do is defer to them afterwards. If it's Barb Manning and Annie Durham, and they'll take probably your questions offline or online, whatever you want to do. We just want to respect their privacy, like Jason said.
yeah, those areas up there is the Victor and Cripple Creek area. Both are small towns, they're mountain communities, but they would be best suited to give you the information on their cities.
Yeah, those are pioneer families, folks that have been here 5 generations in some cases. Not saying that Patrick was, but they're just, it's very, very deep. And so I just ask you to wade into that respectfully, like I know you will. But they're here to talk to you afterwards.
And you mentioned how small those kind of areas are, and Cripple Creek is an area that does rely on that mine for a lot of tourism attraction. What kind of impact do you think this is going to have next summer or in the future for people who do travel to Cripple Creek for that mine?
Sure. So our biggest tourism is our number one industry. Our second one is the mine. As Jason said last night, this is the end. I think this is the last weekend. They would be closing anyway, a lot of seasonal activity. So that allowed investigators to do what they have. Certainly if it didn't reopen, i.e. the owner didn't want to open or something happened, and we don't know that, no conjecture, it would have an impact. But that's what it is with tourism up here. Usually it slows down during the wintertime anyway.
And I think it's to understand, too, that mine is a historical representation of the Cripple Creek and Victor mining area on how they mined in the old days, what they did. So, really we want to see it opened back up because it does have that flavor for people to understand really what these miners went through and how they dealt with those issues and what those mine shafts look like. So it is something nice that people can actually see and understand what happens. We want to see it open back up, and hopefully, they can go through the safety mechanisms and make sure it's a safe event. And for the family that's been doing it, this has been their whole life. This has been passed on generation to generation to sons. So we want to see them come back. And to be completely honest, that owner actually rode with the inspectors to make sure that mine or this elevator could go down safely, because he had the best knowledge of the mine and how that shaft would look, how that elevator should work. So not only did he do that, but he put his own life at risk, and his son's operating the hoist system that lowers the elevator. There was a lot of pressure on that family. And without their help, we may not have been able to get people up out of there. So, really, to me, they're heroes of an event also. Because at any time if something would occur, they're the only ones with institutional knowledge of where the mine works, the tunneling systems, how best to operate. It would have taken us days to figure out that information without them and their resources. So they did an amazing job. The gentleman that was at the bottom at the 1,000-foot level with the people that were there, he's actually been through the mine rescue training. He kept those people happy and healthy and safe down there by talking to them and telling them stories about the mining, so that when they got brought up, they didn't know what was happening. And I think that's important because those folks really did a lot of work that really made it become a great outcome for us.
Do you have hopes that tour guide?
The tour guide, yes.
Do you have hopes that the mine will open in the future again? Are you confident in that?
I do. I have high hopes. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of investigation and inspections and everything the state of Colorado can do to make sure it's a safe operation. And I have no doubt in my mind that it will be safe. The issue is, too, is there hadn't been, I guess, an incident there in over 40 years. And we are talking thousands and thousands of people every year go down that mine and back up. So just like a ride at a carnival, right? Some things happen. And unfortunately, it happened. So we have high hopes that it'll be back up and running next year for the family's well-being and then also for the community in Cripple Creek.
When you talk about keeping them calm down there, I'd imagine that's an important aspect, especially considering we couldn't get to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we made the ultimate decision not to tell them what was occurring at the 500 foot and at the surface. We knew that we couldn't get anybody down to them. We knew that we couldn't help them if there was a medical emergency. From what we saw, because there's actually video where you can see what they're doing down there, and then we can actually talk to the guide. We didn't tell the guide either. We didn't want anybody to be upset. Because if we'd have had an anxiety issue or a heart attack because of the stress of it, you're at 1,000 feet, and there's no way up until we get the elevator up and running, other than to lower a rope with somebody on a ropes team to bring out everybody one at a time. So making that decision not to tell them, I think was a smart decision, because at that point they just thought it was a simple elevator issue and that everything was going to be fine. And it was at the end of the day. So
For the people who were stuck at the 500-foot point, I assume that included Mr. Weir and 4 other people?
on the initial movement up, where we brought people up the first time, there was 11 people. So yeah, there was quite a few.
And how many people were at the 1,000-foot level of that?
At that point, it was 12. Yeah.
And sorry, Mr. Weir was part of that 11?
Yes.
Do we have specifics on the eventual release of the 12 people and how we actually got them up and out?
Yep. So after the engineers from the elevator team, the mine safety team, and all those that were involved with it, that was then my job to actually say, yes, we can do this. And we met with the owner, and I asked him each a specific question, because nobody can give me a straight out answer, yes, it's absolutely safe, right? Nobody wants to tell me, yes, it becomes a call of what's the best thing to do. So I have to ask each person, do you believe it's safe? Well, Sheriff, we think it's safe. We believe it may work. So try to make a decision on a may, right? Or it should work. So at the end, at 6:03, I was able to make that decision with their input to say, let's do plan A. Let's try it. So then they lower down the elevator past the 500-foot to the 1,000-foot unmanned. Then they bring it back up to make sure it's going to actuate. One of the worries that they had in the initial is if something breaks, falls, we could close a shaft, right? And then it may be even more of an issue. So then the second piece of that was when it comes up, that the rescuers would then ride it back down with the owner to make sure the shaft is clear and he knows what he's seen, right? Because we knew that we had a crushed door and there was issues and it may have hit something. We don't know what kind of damage that occurred. So when they were able to lower that down very slowly to the very bottom and find that they had no issues doing so, they would allow everybody back on, and then we brought them up in groups of 4. We brought them to the surface, and then when they got to the surface, we took each group, because they really still had no idea what was going on. We cleared the area of the first responders. A deputy met them, took them to one of the buildings they have that people can sit in. They'd asked for pizza, right? Because everybody wants pizza after they've been there for a long time. We got them the restrooms. We got them in. We started feeding them. And then I went and briefed them. A bunch of us as elected officials sat down with them and said, listen, you're going to turn on your phones in the next few minutes. You're going to be on stage in front of the national media. They have no idea what's going on because nobody's even turned their phones on yet to start them going crazy. And we explained to them that someone had died on the trip up prior to them, that this was a major incident. It wasn't just the belief that the elevator was broken. And I think that was a very sobering experience for them. So when they left there, the ambulance crew started talking to them, make sure they were safe and okay, and then our mental health teams started working with them if they had any mental health issues. I really think that probably shock was setting in about exactly what had happened. But I'll tell you, they all left in good spirits. They were good people, and I think they understood how much everybody was trying to do for them.
You had said yesterday back in 1986 was the last time you had an incident?
Yeah, I think that was actually a question from one of the news affiliates about that incident in 1986. I'll be honest, I was 10 years old. I don't believe anybody was injured at the time. I think that was an elevator mishap, but don't quote me on it because I couldn't tell you everything that happened with it. It's such old news, I don't even know that I could find the microfilm to deal with it. So just know there had been an issue. I think that it had been inspected and dealt with back then, and like I said, they receive inspections all the time.
For the people at the 500-foot mark, was there a stop for the elevator there, or was that just where the malfunction
I don't know whether there was a stop there or not. I know that the malfunction happened there, and the elevator did come to a stop because the elevator operator felt something strange, and then started to bring it back up. Or actually, I'm sorry, he came to a complete stop, and then once they started to figure out what's going on, they brought it up very slowly. The problem with this type of conveyance is that when you bring it up slowly, it'll overheat. It has to come up at a higher rate because it's an older system. It's a system that's designed to bring up a lot of weight very quickly for mining ore. So these elevators are on a system that's old, but is still very, very usable and safe. The issue is when they're having to bring it up slow because they don't know what's happened. It's a very slow pull to get it back to the surface, so they have to stop every 100 feet to make sure. And I think they were very unsure of what actually has happened. So once they got to the surface is where we find out that we actually had issues.
Was that elevator operator not Mr. Weir?
The operator actually sits in a cab outside of the mine, so he's not pushing buttons inside of the cab. So it's all operated from the surface.
On a personal level, what's going through your head while you're coordinating this big response?
How much I didn't know about mines, I'll be quite honest, right? So, whenever you're dealing with a first response to something, we know how to coordinate things. We know how to get people gelled into systems and work through those issues. We deal with a lot of big emergencies here in this county. I've done so for many years. So I think just getting the team together, getting the people here that could tell me exactly what was happening with the system to make the best plans and have the resources there to deal with it. Dealing with the victims. Understanding I've got children that we're dealing with. Understanding we're dealing with adults. It's traumatic. I wouldn't want to be in a stuck elevator at 800 feet or at 500 feet with somebody that's deceased, right? So there's a lot of things that are going through our minds as first responders. And then the worry that, not knowing how this shaft is set up, but as it collapsed. The initial information we got was totally different than what the situation we finally ran into. Some better and some worse. So, you're trying to kind of ferret through all that different information you're receiving, and you don't want to mess up. There's 20-some lives at risk. And now I have another 150 first responders that are at risk because we don't know what's going on at all. And these mines can be dangerous. But talking with the owner and knowing them and understanding how much work they put into that mine, it made me feel a little bit better. And really being able to get those folks out there that really knew, and then really understanding that final decision on how you're going to bring them up is going to either end your career or make it all right? So you're making those decisions on the fly. So there's no rule book. You're taking the best course of action you believe is the best and making a decision and going with it. So.
And I just got to say for Jason, it's courage under fire is what it is. Seriously, he's meeting some of the first responders for the first time. They're coming up from cities all over Colorado. He's meeting some of the elected officials for the first time. He's talking to the governor, not for the first time, but if you haven't talked to the governor, when he says, "What do you need?" and you're still trying to understand the situation. So, and in our system, and that's why you always see a county sheriff, there can only be one commander, right? He's the incident commander, and then in our case, the county commissioners look and say, "What do you need?" We try to help to keep some of the stuff away that he doesn't need and filter it, and we try to share in risk when we need to, because at the end of the day, it could have been a very bad outcome, and then someone would have said this would have been a very different discussion today, and we would have stood right next to him. And so I'm really proud of you, Jason, and you guys should be proud of him too, and all your county sheriffs. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and I know you'll have a break coming here before too long, hopefully. But.
The what?
It's like 13, I think.
I think the children are around 13 years old, somewhere in there. I spoke with both of them. Great kids. They went through a lot. We have teddy bears we actually give kids under extreme conditions. So we were able to give them those and have mental health workers come and help talk with them and speak with them about the situation they've just been through. But kids are funny. They're more resilient than adults a lot of times, right? So they ask you questions that you're shocked that they were able to come up with. And what I found through the years is just give them the right answers, and just go forward.
Did anyone have heat-related injuries or effects?
No heat related. When you're that far underground, I had this question last night about these people. Were they cold down there? the earth regulates its temperature. So really for them, they probably had it better off than we did. So it does. So really, you don't get the high heats, you don't get the cool. It's pretty much perfect.
From the process of bringing the elevator up?
No, so the heat is actually back where the cable winds. That's where you'll get the heat, not actually in the elevator, because it's really on a long line that goes through the upper part of the mine system that drops down to the elevator. So.
How long were those people in the elevator after it malfunctioned before they were brought up to the surface?
Well, it's hard to say because what's happening is there's nobody really logging time at that point trying to figure out however long it takes for that elevator to get to the surface, because I'm sure it's a lot longer for them than it was us, but sometimes it's maybe longer for us because we're worried it's not coming up. So, it's hard to say. It could have been anywhere from 2 minutes to 20 minutes for all I'm.
It was about noon when you guys first received the call. Do you know when they were at the surface level?
I don't know. For that initial, I got there after they had just gotten up. So my crews had already gotten there prior and trying to get them up because we didn't know what was wrong with the elevator, so we wanted to get that thing up with the owners to the surface first.
When was the last time you had an event to this level here in Cripple Creek?
Well, actually several times. I mean, we had it during the snow issue we just had. We had the Texas 7 incident here in this county. We've had some hostage rescue things that were this big. We had the immigration issues in this county that were a big news media. So we've done a lot of these types of major media pieces.
How old was Mr. Weir?
He was 46 years old. Yes.
Understanding that, again, with the investigation, you may not be able to answer this. Is there any indication, any accounts given that Mr. Weir took action which put himself in danger but kept everybody else safe during this incident, during whatever happened?
My feelings is that he was attempting to make everybody safe. Now, I don't know what occurred, though. I think our investigation will come out with that. All I know that he was a good man, and he loved his job, and he was a part of a mine safety crew, and he'd done different things. He'd just gotten done with a fire academy, I guess, or we'd go into one. So, I don't know any more than that. But I do know that, for us and what it looks like, that he may have been a hero from the beginning.
Yeah, I would tell you it's very similar. I was an aviator pilot for 30 years. It's very similar to what happens after an aircraft crash. All these questions in the same process. So they'll look at training, they'll look at material potential failure, they'll look at machinery, and that's why we have to stay clean and stay out of it. And they'll come back, and at some point they'll provide a briefing to you guys. And again, just to reiterate, those folks were there last night. They were there almost within minutes of us getting there, including the two directors of Reclamation Mining Safety. So they'll look at all that stuff.
Yeah.
But again, just how we began this is about mourning right now. It's about the folks that you're going to report to are just now going to hear these names, and we're going to go out there and hug some folks. So really appreciate it.
Was the elevator rated for the amount of people that were in it when the malfunction?
I don't know. I don't deal with elevator ratings. The state of Colorado does. I just know I wouldn't be in one of the elevators just because I don't like going underground, and I have this thing about that. But it's we don't know. We really don't. So the mine safety folks and the elevator engineers could probably tell you more from the state of Colorado.
I know it's still very early on, and other than time and space, I'm sure people are going to want to know what they can do to support the family at this time. Is there anything that maybe they could bring here to the sheriff's office, anything like that?
I would wait until we know more. We're still working with the family to identify those needs. And there's a lot they're trying to process at this point. So when we get that, we will put it out on our Facebook page for you so that locally we can do some things. Well, folks.
I don't know if you have a picture of him yet, the victim, but do you think you could post a picture of him that we could all use?
Yeah, once we have it and the family releases it, we'll be more than happy to do so. Well, folks, thank you for everything today. We really appreciate all your partnership and time, and we hope not to see you very soon.
And again, the mayors are behind you along with public health, so you're welcome to talk to them. Thank you.
Thank you.